If you train Krav Maga, you are already angry. And that is exactly why you need to hear this, because what I'm about to say is not an opinion, it is an outcome. I have watched confident Krav Maga students freeze, collapse, and panic the moment things stop following the script. The same false confidence people laugh at in Taekwondo. Krav Maga just hides it better. And if you walk away now, you will never know why. So, here's the question Krav Maga instructors never answer honestly. If Krav Maga is pressure tested, why do its students panic the moment the attacker does not follow the drill? Quick favor, tap like to help spread this. And before you say bad training, ask yourself this. How many failures does it take before it is a system problem, not a student problem? If you train Krav Maga, you have been sold a promise. It is a promise of brutal efficiency. You are told it is a system designed for the street with no rules and no hesitation. This promise feels good. It feels powerful. But it is a promise that is starting to crack under the weight of real-world data. The idea that one system holds all the answers to violence is a dangerous myth. It is a marketing slogan, not a survival strategy, and it is a myth we need to debunk right now before it gets someone seriously hurt or killed. The truth about violence is short and ugly. Data from law enforcement agencies like the FBI shows that most violent confrontations are over in a flash. An average street fight lasts just 8 seconds before someone is incapacitated. 8 seconds. In that tiny window, your training either works or it does not. There is no time for complex moves or fancy sequences. The other side of that coin is the police response time. In many major cities, it can take 10 to 12 minutes for help to arrive. You are completely on your own in those critical moments, and what you do determines the outcome. This is the gap that systems like Krav Maga claim to fill. They sell you the tools to survive those crucial seconds before help can ever reach you. The marketing is slick. It is aggressive. It speaks to a deep-seated fear of random violence and promises a direct physical solution. If this helps, please hit like to get the word out. The problem is that the marketing often outpaces the reality. The techniques that look so devastating in a warm, well-lit dojo often fall apart in the chaos of a real assault. The street-ready label is easy to claim, but very difficult to prove in a world of unpredictable violence. We need to have an honest conversation about what works and what does not. This is not about attacking a specific martial art. It is about holding all self-defense training to a higher standard. That standard is reality. We must look at what actually happens in violent encounters, not what we wish would happen. We must analyze data, review police reports, and listen to the hard-won experience of those who face violence for a living. The promise of any self-defense system must be tested against the unforgiving chaos of a real fight, where there are no rules, no referees, and no second chances. Krav Maga exploded in popularity for one simple reason. Its message was clear and powerful. It promised to be what other martial arts were not. It was not a sport. It had no competitions. It was sold as a pure self-defense system. Stripped of all tradition and ceremony, the marketing focused on its military origins in Israel and its brutal, no-holds-barred approach. The core message was simple: finish the fight as quickly as possible using any means necessary. To understand the potential pitfalls facing Krav Maga, we only need to look at the history of Taekwondo. Taekwondo also began as a formidable combat art developed for the Korean military. It was a comprehensive system that included punches, kicks, joint locks, throws. Its original purpose was practical self-defense and military combat. But then, something changed. Taekwondo began to shift its focus towards sport competition. To make it safer and more palatable for a global audience, rules were introduced. Support the message, tap like so others see it. Punching to the head was forbidden in the most popular Olympic rule set. Punches to the body were scored so poorly that they became almost irrelevant. The entire game became focused on landing fast, acrobatic kicks to the torso and head. The art transformed from a holistic combat system into a highly specialized kicking sport. A Taekwondo practitioner trained under the Olympic rule set is an amazing athlete, flexibility, speed, and timing. But they are also conditioned to avoid punching the head and to ignore grappling. The moment a fight goes to the ground, a pure Taekwondo practitioner is often completely unprepared. The stories told in a martial arts dojo often sound nothing like the events documented in police incident reports. When we move away from marketing and look at hard data, a very different picture of street violence emerges. Research shows that a huge number of street fights are chaotic and spontaneous. Roughly 65% of them happen without any prior planning. They are sudden explosions of violence, not duels. Furthermore, about half of the people involved are under the influence of drugs or alcohol. This makes them unpredictable, resistant to pain, erratic. This data is critical because it directly challenges the training methodologies of many self-defense systems. An attacker who is drunk or high on PCP will not react to pain in the same way as a sober training partner. A strike that is supposed to disable them might only make them angrier. The fight is not a clean exchange of techniques. It is a messy, desperate struggle. Police body camera footage consistently shows that fights are not upright, stand-up affairs. They involve clinching, grabbing, stumbling, and almost always end up on the ground in a chaotic scramble. When we look at injury patterns, the stakes become even clearer. About 15% of people involved in street fights suffer from long-term physical injuries, broken bones, deep cuts, permanent nerve damage. This is not about scoring points or winning a match. It is about avoiding life-altering harm. The goal of self-defense is not to win the fight. It is to get home safely. Section 5, why no rules techniques fail in real chaos. The core appeal of Krav Maga is its no rules philosophy. Eyes, throat, groin. In theory, this makes perfect sense. A quick, debilitating strike to a vital area should end the fight immediately. Neutralize the threat. Escape. The marketing videos show this happening flawlessly. The instructor demonstrates a perfect eye gouge or a swift groin kick. The compliant training partner collapses in agony. The problem is that reality is not so cooperative. In the chaos of a real assault, hitting small moving targets is incredibly difficult. An attacker is not a static dummy. They are a dynamic, aggressive human, moving, grabbing, trying to harm you. Under stress and adrenaline, fine motor skills deteriorate rapidly. Your ability to perform precise, targeted movements plummets. Aiming for an eye when your heart is pounding and your hands are shaking is low percentage. The same goes for a groin strike when the attacker is moving, turning, and their legs are not conveniently open. Furthermore, an attacker may not be affected by pain predictably. As statistics show, many assailants are under the influence of alcohol, drugs. They may not even register a strike that would incapacitate a sober person. A failed eye poke might do little more than enrage them further. A groin kick that lands slightly off target might have no effect at all. Relying on a single magic technique to end the fight is a dangerous gamble. If that one move fails, you are left with no backup plan and an even more determined attacker. The term Bullshido was coined to describe martial arts that look effective but are, in practice, useless or even dangerous. The problem is rampant in the self-defense industry, and Krav Maga is not immune. The quality of a Krav Maga school depends almost entirely on its training methodology. A good school will pressure test its techniques, acknowledge failure rates, focus on high percentage principles. A bad school, a Bullshido school, will rely on compliant drills, organic dummies, flashy demonstrations that build a false sense of confidence. This is not just ineffective, it is actively harmful. One of the biggest red flags of a Bullshido school is a lack of alive, non-compliant training. If you are only ever practicing techniques on a partner who is letting you perform the move, you are not learning how to fight. You are learning a choreographed dance. Real attackers resist. They fight back. They do not hold the knife still for you to practice your disarm. Training against a yes-man partner conditions you for a reality that does not exist. It creates muscle memory for a perfect scenario, which will immediately fail when faced with the chaos of a real resisting opponent. This false sense of security is the greatest danger. When the real moment comes and the technique fails, they have no plan B. They freeze. This is why the source of the training matters. Real Krav Maga, as practiced by elite military units, is brutally effective because it is brutally vetted. It is constantly tested, refined, and adapted. Unfortunately, many civilian gyms that use the Krav Maga name are more focused on self-defense for a mass market. They soften the training, simplify the concepts to the point of absurdity, avoid the kind of intense, pressure-filled sparring that is necessary to forge real skill. They are selling the brand, not the battle-tested substance. So what actually works? The modern evidence-based approach is a hierarchy of tools: awareness, de-escalation, physical defense, and legal knowledge. Situational awareness is most important. Paying attention gives you the one thing no martial art can: time to see a threat developing and leave the area. Next is de-escalation. Using your voice tone and body language to diffuse a tense situation can prevent a fight before it starts. When that fails, you need simple combatives that hold up under stress. Gross motor movements like powerful strikes to large targets, designed to create an opportunity to escape. Finally, combine skills through cross-training and understand your local self-defense laws. Knowing when you can legally use force is a critical part of a complete self-defense education. So, how do you find effective self-defense training? You need to become a critical consumer. Look past the flashy videos and ask hard questions. First, is their curriculum based on real-world data about how violent encounters happen? Next, do they use pressure testing? A good program forces you to use techniques against a resisting partner, simulating the stress of a real attack. Look for a curriculum that teaches the full spectrum of self-defense, including situational awareness and de-escalation. If a school's only answer is to punch it, they're giving you an incomplete toolkit. Finally, seek out programs with a hybrid approach. No single style has all the answers. A good program focuses on principles like balance, distance, and timing that apply across all ranges of a fight. The promise of a street-ready system is powerful, but a promise without proof is just a story. Demand evidence. The only thing that matters is what works.